And now we're live. What's up, everybody? Welcome into another Sunday. However, this time it's not an actual Vampire the Masquerade session, but it is the recap and chat about Season 2. Unfortunately, once again, I'll have to apologise to everyone. I fucked up and lost all the audio for the Season 2 finale. So there is no Season 2 finale on YouTube, which is absolutely gutting. It was an extremely good episode with lots of really cool shit happening. So apologies for that, but we are going to do a recap tonight. Well, our storyteller is going to recap. Firstly, we're going to recap the Season 2 and get a broad sort of look at what's happened over the course of the 10 episodes of Season 2. And then he will go through and do a recap from the finale. Players, anything you remember going through the recap, jump in, pipe up, so that we can get a pretty broad sort of look at what happened, and then we'll just get into and just basically hang out and talk about Season 2.
Yeah, if anything important I missed, it's there. Just to correct you slightly there.
Well, either way, whichever way you're going to do it.
No, just it won't just be Season 2 though. The recap I've got is everything.
Oh, from Season 1 and 2. Okay, yeah, cool. Well, there you go then. Chat as well. Any questions? Once we get into past that, any questions you've got directed at the characters or directed at the storyteller, either at me or at the person that you're wanting to direct your question at, just to make it a little bit easier to keep track of what we're sort of getting at and what we're up to.
Players too, if I'm in the recap and there's something you want to interject with, just chime on in there, because like I say, I'm just glancing over, but if there's anything you want to sort of remind us about a cool moment or what have you, go for gold. So you want me to kick into it?
Jump on in. Let's get it underway.
Sweet. So imagine like the music to Carry On My Wayward Son, which we can't do any more of because it's 9 seconds, and then I'll say the story so far.
I've got a bit of music running in the background, so.
Oh, sweet. So, Elysium held a meeting. Prince Leslie Taylor wished to root out his enemies and stomp on the resistance of the Anarchs, the Thinbloods, and the Sabbat. That very same night, Elysium was attacked in an unsuccessful attempt to take out or end the life of said prince, who was played by the handsome Magic up there in the corner. The prince and the sheriff Marco Kane, called forth a group of kindred who they enlisted to be their hounds, who are now our coterie. You see these handsome and beautiful people in front of you.
Where these handsome and beautiful,
much more
people?
Handsome and beautiful than them.
I wouldn't go that far. Jeez.
The hounds have been very busy. One night with a sniper at a meeting, a couple of nights with the prince, another evening checking out some SA agents or an SA agent's home. At which point they took a little bit of damage. Multiple meetings all over Melbourne with other kindred discussing events and politics.
Yes, all the noise you hear is Nutty, just so you know.
And all of Nutty's noise. The hounds dealt with some minor infringements that caused them to change their joint haven, and I'm looking at Zane here, a couple of times. They also had to deal with getting to know each other over the 2 weeks. I've been through and tallied up, and it is just shy of 2 weeks. We're like a day off 2 weeks that they have been in the company of one another. Elysium hierarchy met with the Anarch leaders on that same night that the SI raided the building, and the prince let out his weapon, the Scourge, whilst the coterie fought hard during this attack to get everyone and themselves out alive. During this very same attack, some of the coterie witnessed the prince being manhandled by one person they've come to know as Tim or Jeremy or Tim Jeremy, or there's many names, but his name is Timothy. With the prince assumed dead, things cooled down for a moment at least. A masquerade ball was attended, and the meetings with our resident informant Mr. Van Diemen took place. One of the Anarch leaders was dealt with severely, leaving the Anarchs wondering what happened to her. And then there was also the motorcycle poker run, which took place where one of our coterie was able to get themselves some quick cash and a glimpse of Timothy, but for whatever reason, minimal memory of any transaction with Timothy was all that remained. That is the main recap. Now I'm going to jump over last week's episode. So last Sunday we began with the same character from the poker run, Aaron. He was returning from wherever he had been. He was driving a truck into the parking garage of the Haven. The truck was described by him as kitted out so that it should be impossible to electronically interfere with it all, I believe he said. Once inside the Hound's Haven, Aaron joined Isaac and Jackson, who were deep in conversation about the buildings in Footscray, and they were owned, or said to be owned, by the Second Inquisition. The three of you, discussed how many buildings there were, which ones were going to be hit by the Hounds, and which ones were going to be attacked by Isaac's informant. Jackson asked Isaac who his informant was, and Isaac, happy to be finally asked the question about his insights, then relinquished the information that Sarah Barnett was his contact, and that she's going to storm the SI buildings on the coming Monday. Being the Saturday night, they only had roughly, give or take, 24 hours to prepare after this current evening. So, Jax and Aaron, Jax asked Aaron where he'd been, and with Aaron bluntly saying he'd been on a poker run, he'd pretty much only been gone for a night and a half, so he didn't see it as a big deal, but he had won some money, which he mentioned to you. We jumped scene there over to Echo, Pip and Zane, who were at the Stalking Moon Internet Cafe, which was Zane's old shop that they thought previously sold and changed, but to their surprise, it was unaltered. They were there to look for his assistant, whom Zane had a tracker on her phone, but it had suddenly died. After the talk on the phone with Jonathan Phillips, Zane had begun to worry what might have happened to her. Pip also had had a vision of something weird that pushed into his mind, and he was worried about what he saw. He muttered things about his friend at the University of Monash, the library there, and he forcefully said to the others, Echo and Zane that were with him, that he wanted to go there right away. So, with that, they quickly all hopped into Zane's vehicle with Echo behind the wheel, and they headed, well, somewhere. Echo didn't go the way of the university. She headed towards the botanical gardens. Echo then told Zane and Pip to use their abilities to become unseen whilst they exited the car. Echo led them towards a building that looked a lot like a church hall with a set of stained glass windows and bulky wooden doors. Once at the doors, our friend Echo knocks and speaks a sentence, to which the door guard then opens and lets them in. We switch scene back to Aaron, Isaac and Jax. Jax received a call from Detective Fisher, whom he gets some information from. Fisher told him that of the 15 or 20 or so SI agents at the building that they are looking at, that they were mostly being shifted around between these buildings, and that generally at any one time, all of the buildings had a fair amount of guards. They also mentioned that the one that our coterie are headed to had actually stepped up its guard regime not too long earlier, maybe a few weeks before, just before the Hounds were actually come into play. So he then received a follow-up text from one of his people with some information which he had asked for, and then he forwarded that information onto a few of his interactive parties. Isaac spoke to Aaron of his adventure with Jax and Zane and Pip into the graveyard of the old Elysium and down through a tunnel. He explained the protections in it, and he spoke of the damage he had suffered. The three of them had a talk about getting back there and finding out what's hidden, but maybe questioning the Keeper and Marco about why the wards may be there or who might have put them there. They all would receive messages to head to Elysium somewhere around here. I believe it was somewhere around there.
Pretty much.
Isaac,
it was about spot on.
Yeah, I think, give or take, roughly. I sort of forget. But I know Isaac used some blood magic to converse with the Tremere Primogen at that same point and asked him a few questions about the sheriff and the tunnel wards before you guys headed off. We had another scene shift putting us back at the church hall where Echo, Zane and Pip met a kindred named Arturo. Pip was concerned about his friend Samantha Vance, but Arturo tried to convince him that she was fine as his people were near her because they were keeping an eye out for Pip and Zane. Some questions were asked about Arturo's standing, and he mentions that he's part of a group known as Sabat. He explained that the Camarilla, he sort of spoke about the Cam as wanting to rule all kindred, and they don't like, or they don't agree with the Camarilla. And he agrees with Pip and Zane that they are a little stuck up. He also thinks that the Anarch are much the same, and they're a little more free in some respects, but other than that, they're just dirty people with leather jackets. When asked about the Sabat, he doesn't give them much. He states that he believes that kindred, shouldn't be afraid of mortals and shouldn't have to hide who they are, and that the mortals are their food source. So he wasn't intently trying to kill them. Zane asks about his secretary, whom Arturo informs him is here in the building. She is brought out and joins the conversation. Pip pushes his concerns again for his friend as Arturo gets his people to check in on her, informing Pip that Samantha and his people are on their way to his very building. And Arturo offers for Zane and Pip to work for him, says to him to let him know if him or Zane or Pip decide. Either way. He also offers, once Samantha arrives, their lady friends a safe place to stay if they wish, or a couple of guards to watch their houses, whichever they choose. The three hounds then also receive messages to head to Elysium as they exit the church hall. Another scene change brings us to the hounds arriving at Elysium, the temporary Elysium in the art gallery, the Lost Art Gallery in Northcote. So it is here that a weapon check at the doorway for all who enter normally happens, but Jax shoots ahead, stating to the guard he knows that he wishes to hold some small items for self-defense. He is assured by this guard that the hounds are allowed to have small weapons as long as nothing too crazy enters the room. The group is shown in, and the keeper leads them to a small, office space while they await the Primogen Council. Whilst in there, the keeper, Mr. Chopin, is asked by Isaac and Jax about the wards within the graveyard under the old Elysium. Chopin informs him that what they described are not his wards and most probably have been added afterward. He also is asked how a kindred would cross these wards, and Chopin says no matter what, the kindred would set them off and would be damaged in some way or another. Then our friend Chopin leaves the group, and momentarily he heads out to address the council. Whilst he's gone, Aaron, trance-like, arises from his seat and goes to the middle of the room, which is about 5 by 5 meters wide and long. He puts a small box, no larger than slightly larger maybe than a ring box, like a jewelry case. He places it on the floor and then begins to unravel the ribbon. Echo feels that there's something wrong and jumps back, grabbing Pip and Zane, pulling them to the floor. Isaac also dives to the side, taking cover, while Jax runs at Aaron and spear tackles him to the floor. An explosion of flames leaps from the small box, right as Echo activates a dark black cloud that chokes the room of a lot of its oxygen. The explosion is lessened, but flames, shrapnel, and other debris have done their job, and there are some heavy injuries taken within this space. The Elysium guards rush in, and the group is quickly questioned. It is deducted rather almost instantaneously by our group that Aaron, seeing Timothy, must have been the cause, because Aaron's memory is very unclear on Timothy. And you've all seen the power that has before, Jax mentioning what happened to him with the Sabbat leader. Zane is in torpor, and no matter what the hounds try, they cannot bring him back. Even with the aid of the keeper, Zane doesn't seem to be in a very good way at all. 2 Justicars are called in to the aid, and they take Zane off to a place where he can be healed. Amidst the chaos, Jax is called to the council first and asks what he knows about the whereabouts of Marco. He admits that he sent him messages, but he has no replies. Whilst the Elysium guards clean up the explosion, the other hounds are also called in to see the council. I think you were all ready for reprimand or some sort of drilling about what's going on, but what happens here is, I believe, a surprise to you all, where the council announces that Echo has won the votes for Praxis and she is now the new prince. This gives you guys a fair bit to talk about, not only then in space, but next season. And lastly, Zane awakes. It was pitch black, other than a small candlelight. He doesn't know how he has awoken, and he is chained tightly to a concrete slab. And that is where our episode ended. Thank you, that was long-winded, I know.
That was good. Thank you very much. So season 2 has come to an end. A lot of interesting things happened throughout our story, especially the Praxis announcement and the announcements that came thereafter. Obviously, the Timothy thing. Poor old Aaron failing his roles and not knowing anything about it. But so we'll turn it over now to the chat and the rest of the players and that as well, even Storyteller. Any questions to the players or the Storyteller about Season 2 or everything to date? Obviously, we won't give away anything that pertains to Season 3 or stuff that hasn't fully come out yet. Season 3 will definitely be coming. When is Season 3? There you go. First question. Season 3. There is no set date for Season 3 thus far. We will be starting my second homebrew campaign on the 13th of February. And essentially we're running that until we get to a point where I think it's probably a good point to stop for a bit. And then we'll be looking at Season 3. So anytime within the next 3 months-ish, I would say, give or take. We'll set a date for Season 3, and Season 3 will run for 10 to 12 episodes. So again, join the Discord if you're not in it already, because that's where everything will be announced for it, and on my Twitter. So ! Socials in the chat will give you those details. Obviously, if you've missed any episodes from previous 2 seasons, subscribe to the YouTube and go over there and watch those. Those stuff are up there, apart from Season 2 finale. Again, sorry, that happened. Can't get around that. So
but you now have a recap you can throw in.
Exactly. So I could upload the recap if I wanted to. I mean, I don't think we really need to. It's one of those things. But I may upload this session anyway, just because. So guys, any questions from the players for the Storyteller or for each other? We'll sort of just open it up to everyone at this point. Anybody at all?
Vancouver's got another one there while you
I see that, yeah.
So what is the process that I come up with for the story? So that's a funny thing, Vancouver. I got a pad paper out and you guys probably have all heard like brain maps and stuff. I pretty much just wrote a bunch of ideas down like I do for when I write my D&D stories. And we sat down at a sort of a session 0, and I think I mentioned a few of the ideas to the players, and everyone sort of said, "Oh, whatever you decide's good."
Pretty
so
much.
we went with it. NPCs, yeah. So there's Leslie Taylor. The prince was already existing in the lore according to DTM Online, so we utilised what was already there. The rest of them are pretty much on my own. All the player characters, Mina included, they've come up with their own, but all the NPCs, I think I've come up with them myself. I don't think any of them's added, other than like the characters like Echo's butler that she interacts with. They've come up with the people they interact with. I just sort of play them.
So our own relationship maps were come up with primarily on our own and introduced. Yeah,
the ideas for their interactions and relationships are definitely all them. So anything to do with their characters directly has come from the players, and they've done a great job doing all the background work. But yeah, a lot of the characters that I've used as NPCs, Vancouver, I've bastardized real people from Melbourne and Australian history as best I can, trying to make it realistic without plagiarizing too much from real life. I think that covers it.
So JJ, this isn't a question, but fuck Yanti, you do so well as Echo. You fuck with my head. You're good or bad. Are you in it for yourself? Do you really like everything? I love it, GG girl. So that's from JJ. And a question for Magic from JJ. How did it feel coming back as a different character? Was it a little weird after playing Leslie coming back as Dr. Isaac Graves?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, JJ. Obviously, Leslie was already mapped out by Baz when he approached me to play Leslie, so I did pretty much the same as what Baz did. He told me here's the information on the wiki, and I had a look at it, and then I also used a little bit of inspiration from what was that show, Underground. There was actually a series based on Leslie Taylor, So a lot of
was that the Aussie series, eh?
the Underbelly,
Yeah,
the
Underbelly,
Underbelly series. So there was an actual series dedicated to Leslie Taylor. So a lot of the stuff, I bastardized that as well, and used that in conjunction with what was on the wiki. So, and it just so happened that Leslie just grew an entity of his own. However, with Isaac, it's my own creation. You know, it's like I've built this guy from the ground up, and thank you, Baz, for letting me play Tremere, because I've got a bit of history for you guys. I used to play 20th Ed with some friend of mine for about 10-15 years, and he would not allow me to play the Tremere clan because he thought they were too powered, which Vancouver will pretty much agree with me. But Tremere in that edition was pretty OP. They can just do some ridiculous things. But yeah, it's when Baz approached me to say, hey, we would like you to bring in our own full-time character, I was already in creation mode from the end of that conversation. So when it was time for Isaac to be there, I was ready to go. So was it weird? No, not really, because I just switched Leslie off as much as I enjoyed playing him as an NPC, but this is my own creation, so I can really tell you guys the story of Isaac.
Yeah, and you do it so well. So we've got another question here to all players. So I'm going to put one player on the spot and start with you. So how did all players come up with the characters? Did you think you wanted to play a clan first, or come up with a concept and then pick a clan? So I'm going to put Yanti on the spot and have you answer first, and then we'll go around and get everyone else's.
Why put me on the spot first?
Because I can.
I had two things in mind that I wanted to play, and I worked with my storyteller on a concept, and then the clan for that kind of just fell into place after that. So yeah, my stuff's not yet to be discovered, so I can't give spoilers.
So there's a little bit of mystery around Echo yet, so there's a little bit of stuff we can't sort of obviously divulge, and none of us know yet, so we can't give anything away. Grim, same question.
So I started with the concept first because I've worked in libraries for a while, and I thought, well, if I, not knowing VTM very well, I thought, well, if I base this character on what I know, so libraries, I have a fair bit of anxiety, and I sort of build this character to be based on that, but then sort of grow into his own thing. And the Malkavian just sort of fit that idea of someone who, even in life, didn't know his place in the world, and now the ground's come up from under his feet and he's got no idea what he's doing. I had some other clan ideas, but the Malkavian sort of fit this structure that I had in my head about who Peregrine is, and I have no idea where he's going, which I think is one of the beautiful things about Pip. He's got no idea what he's doing, so it'd be interesting to see where he goes.
Trash Man.
I started with clan first. Always enjoyed the Malkavian. Love them. Just the insanity that they have. Love it. Then the rest of the thing I had, Yanti helped me with the backstory and all that. So that's about it. Just because I love being another.
It comes easy too, Trash.
Exactly.
And we sort of touched on Isaac, but Magic, how'd you come up with Mr. Isaac Graves, or Dr. Isaac Graves?
it was an idea that I kind of just had brew up in my mind, and so I always wanted to play Tremere, and I said to Baz, can I play Tremere? He said, go for it. So clan was already predetermined for me. The concept would have worked with a couple of other clans anyway, but I kind of created him in a way that is not the typical stereotype Tremere. That if you know VTM, you kind of get where I'm going with that. And funnily enough, it was around about the same time where Mina's character on Grimm's Sunday Discord session, our characters are pretty much concept-wise were identical, and it just so happened to work out that way. So it was kind of a bit funny, but yeah, I'm based him on archaeologist, which is what you were seeing with the tunnels and a few other things. His backstory hasn't really been touched on in the story as yet, so I rather not say anything and let that just naturally come out. But I got a question for everybody, and this is including chat. Does anyone know where I got the name Alan Croft from?
I got a fair idea. Lara Croft's father was named Alan Croft, I believe, in the Tomb Raider series.
Well, Tomb Raider is right. The surname is correct, but Alan is actually from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. There's an archaeologist called Alan in that, so yes. I built the two
Alan
from there.
Quatermain.
Correct.
Right, as for Jackson, I was always going to be a Bruja, my first character into VTM. People who know me will understand why, because the leather jacket wearing pretty much the metalheads of all the punk rockers of the vampire world. They are obviously very strength orientated, a very physical type of character. Punch first, ask questions later kind of deal. And so that really, I chose the clan first and then built Jackson around that, as being a former soldier and who essentially came back from the war, and I mean the war as in World War One. Fell into a bit of trouble, got himself in with the wrong people, got into a bar fight, and ultimately was embraced because of that bar fight. So his character is sort of, again, I can't give too much away of where he's at the moment. There's a lot of things going on, obviously, within Season 2 that have had him dealing with some loyalty issues on his own part and the coterie as a whole. So that he's trying to discover what is best for him to do at this point, where he needs to be to get things done. And he's very much one of those, he's a doer, not he's got some sound strategies, and he's pretty intelligent when it comes to some things. He's not heavily into the politics of everything, so the politics sort of goes over his head a little bit, the finesse of politics, shall we say. He's just a bit more of a brutish character. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out now that obviously now with one of our coterie members being named as Prince, it's going to possibly change the whole structure of the coterie a little bit. So Season 3 will definitely be one to watch. Be one where Echo's obviously going to have to name her sheriff. She's going to have to decide whether the hounds are going to remain the hounds or whether they're going to become her coterie, and all that sort of stuff. We've still got things that we need to do. Obviously, Sheriff is missing. Mary Wade is still missing, although we're pretty sure we know where she is now. Things like that. So there's a lot definitely coming up. in season 3, which will be a lot of fun to watch and see where the characters go. So what was your question again, Magic? Sorry, I forget.
The one about Alan Croft.
Was that just what you wanted to ask? Okay.
Yeah.
So I know we had another question from Vancouver there.
Oh, yep.
Cheers, Vancouver. We'll get to your second question. I think it was favourite and least favourite clans for everybody. So that was Storyteller included.
Ah. Well, I'll go last, but Jax, we should start with you this time.
Okay. For me, again, I only know the clans that I know from watching Vampire the Masquerade. Obviously, it's LA by Night, Vancouver as well. Watching those guys play. I would say probably as far as general things, again, just me being me, Bruja, that whole leather jacket sort of, not so much gang orientated, but just that whole fighting against the system kind of person, just the whole anarchist type clan would be my favorite. I don't know if I'd have a least favorite, because again, I don't really know huge amounts about the other clans without exploring them too much. But as far as in story is concerned, that's kind of a double-edged sword. My favorite clan in some respects, but the least favorite to interact with is certain Malkavians. not all of them, just certain ones. But yeah, I don't really have a least favorite.
I aim to please.
I just see that Mina said JJ had a question prior to that. I'll jump that up after we do this.
Yep. Scroll up, see if I can find it.
I've got it here. Magic. So, favorite and least favorite clan.
Oh, that's hard. I mean, favorite clan is Tremere, hands down.
There you go. Yeah.
Followed very, very closely by Samitsi. I just love the craziness of just that clan alone.
Yeah.
And those who don't know, Samitsi is typically a Sabat clan. Least favorite. I wouldn't say they're a least favorite, but the one kind of like as Eva was touching on, one that I felt like in prior to coming into V5, the Ravnus clan. They didn't really appeal to me too much, even though looking at some of their disciplines and stuff like that, they seem reasonably cool. But I think Ravnos would actually suit Yanti, just based on their sort of stereotype, if you will.
Sweet.
With Yanti enjoying being the gypsy life kind of thing. The Ravnus are exactly like that. They're literally the gypsies of the vampire world.
She wasn't sure if you were insulting her or not. What about you, Zane?
Oh, of course, favourite would have to be Malkavian. I again just love Malkavians and their outlook, their insanity is awesome. Least favourite would have to be the Bruja.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
It goes both ways.
No, it's. I don't like the in-your-face type characters, which is what for me. That's what Bruja are. As far as the rest of the clans, I'm not too sure on them. But yeah, those two, favourite and least favourite.
Sweet. Grim. I keep using your character names, not your background names. So Grim.
Probably the Malkavian is my favorite, followed by the Tremere. I've done a bit of reading about the Tremere. I find where they've come from and their place in this lore quite fascinating. As for least favorite, and Mina's gonna hate me, but it's probably the Ventru. that whole greedy, well-to-do. You're like,
Wait for it. Wait for it.
perfectly easy to dislike. I think in a way they're sort of built that way. They're like, oh, you rich prick, sort of thing. But
Yeah. And Yanti.
I was gonna say Ravenous. Also, there's this like necromancer clan I wanted to try. Is it Hecate? It's one of those.
Hecate.
And I wanted to try that real bad. But the one I'd least play, sorry, Mina, it's Aventru. I don't say it's my least favorite, but it's probably the one I'd play last because the power struggle things.
Yeah. For me, because I've had to read up on for VTM V5 at least, so I don't know some of these other ones like Ravenous and Hecate, which I've read a little bit about, but not much. For me, at beginning, I thought I was all Tremere, and I love Tremere because I like magic users in D&D, so I was Tremere hands down until I had to do some background work, and I won't say who. Zamiche came up, and I read about them, and I went, oh my goodness, this is going to be the greatest NPC ever. And now it's hard yakka. If I ever have to play in a game, I think Zamiche may be the way to go. And I have to agree with Yanti and Grim. I'm not a fan of Ventru, and it's for that same reason. I think watching LA by Night, you need to be the right person to play that character. It's not that I dislike the clan, it's that I don't think I could play that. It's too businessy for me. Even the NPCs that are very businessy, political, I know it's a political game anyway, I struggle with it. It's not my thing, I guess. But it takes a hard not person to play that, so credit to anyone who does. And the people with LA by Night and all the other VTMs, all through YouTube, they do a really good job playing those characters who are Ventru, because it's tough, I think, unless you've got the mind for it. But yeah.
It's the way everyone knows the way there is. So JJ's question, Mr. Storyteller.
Yeah, so he says, this one's directed at Grim. Do you have any of these one-liners and ideas set up and written down, or is it all from your head? Because everyone loves Pip.
So
secrets.
They come out naturally, and it's because just about all the other characters other than Zane are quite, and I don't mean this offensively, quite dry, and it's easy to make. I can see Yanti staring into my soul. It's easy to sort of make jokes about that, but as part of having anxiety, like sometimes you'll try and lighten a situation with a one-liner, and it sort of fits Pip perfectly. The book titles, I have a Word document.
Nice.
Of book titles. They're the only thing, and usually when Pip's trying to be serious or sentimental, I'll write those out, but one-liners just come as they come.
Nice. I hear that. It was similar when you're playing D&D, I think, because I watch your guys' Friday D&D game too, and all the characters, their one-liners are really good. Everyone comes up with one now and then, but Pip seems to be our one, isn't he?
Definitely. So that's that part. Anyone else got any questions? Players, do you guys have any questions for each other or for the storyteller?
Well, according to Mina, Grim won't be playing in season 3. So we might have to get Mina in, I think.
I've got a couple of questions for the players. One of the main ones for me is on the yacht, and I guess that's kind of pre this anyway, but on the yacht, when you guys got that sort of surprise with the actors and that was all happening, did anyone really see it coming? Is that one of those things that caught you by surprise but it was too late? Or
my character wasn't even on the yacht and I thought it was real, so
I thought it was Mary Wade coming out of the water or something, like, why didn't you fuckers get me yet? That's what I thought.
Good.
Honestly, I thought it was a plot twist from one of Echo's books. I thought, well, this person in the book is a real person that she's been writing about. Initially I thought it might have been her sire, but then there had been the couple of phone calls that kind of was like, no, okay, that's not true. But it seemed as though she'd written about a true thing, and that true thing was coming back to bite someone in the ass. It was like, whoa, this is not good.
Well, I mean, they are written about true things. So.
Yeah, I'm with Yanti. I thought it was Mary Wade coming to fuck us up, and and because Pip who he is, I sort of just played that off as I'm gonna walk along, but I had no idea. Like I thought we were in some deep shit.
Yeah, it took me by surprise.
Magic, you're last, I think.
Well, that was the week I was away.
I was going to say, yeah, I was just going to say, actually, you were, yeah.
But yeah, just watching, like, just going back on the VOD and watching everybody's reactions was just absolutely priceless. And, you know, you could just see the smug look on Baz's face going, I got him, you know.
The reason I asked this is exactly that. Magic, you had it. I felt like it was, when I wrote it, I was like, okay, it's Echo's book. She's going to see this coming, because her and Sam had talked about the setup, and he said, oh yeah, I'll get some cosplayers and actors in to do a little skit and that. And so it was actually mentioned in the VODs prior, but no one really, it was such a sort of short conversation, I think they all kind of forgot, which, like you say, I felt like I was smug for sure, but I felt like prior to it, as I was sort of giving the detail, like, because it was at the end of one episode and the beginning of the next sort of thing, as I was giving the detail, I thought, all right, they know it, they're sweet. And then Aaron shoots and everyone sort of gets ready for a fight, and I was like, oh shit, they're falling in hook, line, and sinker. I thought we were going to have a human death, an immortal death, and it was just luck of the dice that no one was killed, because man, that would have been funny. That would have twisted the story completely. So there, that's one of my questions. What was the other one I had? I should have written this down. No, it'll come back to me later. You guys must have something for each other or for me by now.
Is there anything that we surprised the storyteller with that he didn't expect that we would do?
Yes. So every episode, there's something that surprises me. But, yeah, Praxis was one that, and I know you mentioned it to me. You asked a question, I think maybe in Discord, about what would happen if you decided to go for Praxis. And I thought, oh yeah, okay. But when it actually happened, it kind of caught me by surprise. So I was like, alrighty, okay, this is a thing now. Yeah, and that was a really good thing for the story. Because you, like, as a storyteller, and any of you dungeon masters and storytellers out there would contest to, things can change in an instant. All your plans, it's hard to write plans ahead of time because they can change in an instant. Some of the things you guys do in reaction to what I do. Magic, you caught me by surprise at the end of Leslie's time, pretty much, or not Leslie's time, the meeting with the Anarchs. The Sabat leader comes in, and I thought, right, this will be a good chance for the group to have a good conversation. And you were basically, nah, get out, pal. And I had a page of stuff ready for the Sabat leader to say in his language and with the accent. I'd been practicing the accent for like 3 weeks straight, trying to get this right. And you just shut him down. And I was like, oh man, I didn't get to use half of that. And it's not bad at all. It's definitely, you know, if you think as a character that's what you do, that's what you do. And I thought that was really great. You shut him down and he politely left and said, all right, I'll catch you at another time, which worked out perfectly because then the attack happened and he wasn't there for it. So
and that was exactly it. It's kind of like you got this Bruja who's the prince, and this guy just without a care in the world just waltzes in and announces his presence without, you know, knowing full well that he wasn't invited. Yeah, Leslie was going to turn around and go, nah, you don't do this to me. You know who I am, right?
Absolutely. Oh, and like I say, it worked out really well. It sort of showed Leslie's control, and it showed, I felt, Jonathan Phillips' character even showed how he took it well. He was nice and polite, so I gave those two characters a real playoff.
Well, it definitely showed Leslie's power of character, just that power of presence that he had. He's the prince. I mean, he is the more or less the leader of the Camarilla in the city, and you don't disrespect him in that manner. And he made it perfectly clear, and in a polite way, but it was also quite blunt at the same time. It definitely showed Leslie's power at that, just in his own right at that point, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I just remembered the other question I had too. With when you guys saw the prince get attacked, I know, because I guess that was probably the end of the last season, wasn't it? The last episode or something. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, and I can't remember if I asked this or not, but with the prince, did anyone expect the prince to actually be dead, or were there ideas that maybe he was still around? And obviously we don't know for sure yet anyway, but that's sort of where I was headed with that. Did anyone have that suspicion going on?
I assumed he was dead. I assumed he was just gone, and that was the end of that. I thought that was actually where the story was supposed to go, that he was going to die. I expected him to die sooner. But no, I pretty much thought, okay, that's the end of Leslie. We're going to be now focusing on, obviously, the announcing of the new prince. Then Echo drops Praxis. That took me by surprise. So then there was that whole thing between Sheriff Marco and Echo going on, vying for that position. And then that whole Isaac comes in and says, oh, well, he may not be dead. It's like, okay, that now screws with my whole fucking thinking of everything, because I had all these ideas of what was sort of going on, and I put a great big spanner in the works for me as a player. It just threw half of what I was thinking out the window, so I had to rethink a lot of stuff, which was cool, because I like the mystery of these things as well. So
cool. Anyone else?
I thought his death was suspicious. And I don't know enough about VTM, but I'm like, this is Prince Leslie Taylor. Like, he diablerized a person, and he's getting taken out like a bitch in the cemetery. I'm like, it doesn't feel right. And why is he on his own? And then it was Tim Jeremy, and I'm like, it's all weird. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I started second guessing it, and then I'm like, I'm carrying the ashes around, like. I'm like, I wonder if this will come in handy, but Pip just wants someone to hang out with, like. So Grim wants to know if the ashes are Leslie's, but Pip's just like, I'm just gonna read books of this thing. It's fine. So yeah, we've had
I can
Minas. Oh, go on, Baz.
Sorry, mate. I can tell you whose the ashes are. They're yours right now.
Well, they're echoes now. Given to
sorry, they're echoes. Yeah.
well done.
But yeah, me and Mina have had lots of conversations about what we think's going on. So it's always
Nutty and I've done the same thing. We've sat down and talked about it for a lot. It's like, what do we think's going on? And it just keeps going round and round in my head. Then I've got to remember when we sit down and play it. So okay, I've got to go back to what Jackson knows, not what I've heard in the story. Because we've heard conversations, obviously we've heard phone conversations between Echo and Isaiah that none of us are privy to. So we're trying to put those blinkers on to get back into character and focus on what I know as a character rather than what I know as a player. It screws with your mind sometimes, but a lot of fun at the same time.
I just play everything by ear, and what happens.
Pretty much the Milky Way, really.
Exactly.
Love it.
So we're good with that one. I think we got a question here from Mina. What are your favourite interactions between players and NPCs? Directed at you, Baz.
Oh, okay. So this is good. It's come from Mina too, so that's a good one. So Sarah and Echo in season 1, that was their two interactions have been good. Actually, Sarah and just about everyone she's spoken with have been interesting for me because I get to sit back for the character parts, and she's quite Ventrue. She's quite Ventrue at everyone, which is good. And then interacting with Van Diemen and her too has been good. So I'll plug that in for you, Mina. But also, Jackson, Aaron have been very, very interesting throughout both seasons, back and forth. And of course, as of late, the Jackson Echo stuff has been a little back and forth as well. So there is a little bit like our D&D group, actually. There's a little bit of in-house fighting going on back and forth. But everyone has had, Pip's interactions with everyone always keeps me smiling. And as a DM, a lot of the time I find I'm talking a lot, but as a VTM storyteller, I find you guys are doing a lot of that, maybe more so, allowing me to sit back and take notes and make sure, roll dice behind the scenes and all that sort of thing. And Pip gives me a lot of those good moments. So I felt like when I was interacting with Pip on at the Masquerade Ball as the book writer, who I've lost the name of. It's terrible. My brain's shutting down. Sylvia Plath. But I was using her pseudonym, but Vicky, and that's why I was stuck. Nonetheless, I really enjoyed that back and forth, and once again, Grim playing Pip is very quick thinking, Melky crazy all the time. Zane interactions is the tough one because his interactions are very minimal, and he gives you nothing to go on as a character. So his interactions are the toughest ones, but still, when they happen, they're crazy out the gate. He loses a hand, he throws his phone in a drink of water or a sink of water or whatever, And then once Isaac's come on board, it's just unbelievable the way Magic describes the spells, which is awesome because I really like that the wards, how they, how he interacts with the wall, tracing the blood or mixing it in a cup or whatever he's doing at the time, just giving us that to go on because it's that theatre of the mind that we rely on to imagine what's going on with these characters. So it's good to have that. And so I can't, not any one character's interactions has been the best, that you've all had these great interactions. And then, as of recently, it's Echo with, like Billy behind the scenes stuff, Echo with, on the phone with, people that you guys might not or might know, and just really a lot of these cool interactions from everyone. So it wouldn't be as cool as it would be without these players playing along with us because they are very good.
Awesome. So I guess we could probably turn that question over to the players too. Any interactions with another NPC or with an NPC or another PC that stands out for you as from your character's perspective or you as a player's perspective? Trash, we'll put you on the spot first.
Okay, it's not so much play interaction, it's what Zane gets himself into. Like with you, he doesn't try to pick a fight, but he always ends up in a fight. Headbutts, punches.
That's the Bruja way. We talk with our fists in our faces, okay?
Then there's Echo. Still need that sign up, I believe, to say she's banned from going in there at all.
Well, that's your room, dude. It's up to you to sort that out, mate.
Just I'd have to say, likes the conversation between him and Pip.
Cool. Grim.
So probably even from early on, whenever Pip would get to hang out with Echo, I think partly because Echo challenges his idea of where he's at, whether she's doing that from her own actions or from like a place of teaching, like when she helped me get that glue sniffer in season 1, and then in the season finale, like this whole, like, part of me knew that giving the keys to Echo was a risk because you could tell, as a player, I could tell she had something she wanted, and I'm like, well, there's a good chance she's gonna do that. But Pip was just like, well, the best driver's Echo will get to where we're going, and it's always good. And I feel like some of Pip's best interactions are with Echo, and now with Isaac sort of helping Pip to get where he's going. Some of those more serious moments and teaching moments with Isaac have been really good too. And it's always good when Pip gets to hang out with Zane, because Pip reveres Zane in an interesting way, as sort of like an elder in his clan, but also his usefulness, and it's been really good. And I feel like I've had less opportunity to interact with Jackson and Aaron lately, but they're both very different from Pip, and I feel like there's interesting interactions to be had, but
yeah, I think season 3 is going to be the season where we see more of those interactions. Maybe again, it really depends on sort of what comes to light story wise, sort of where everyone's at. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, as far as interactions with the other PCs, because generally, I think for almost the entirety of season 2, Jackson's been kind of on the outside a little bit. He's put himself there for many reasons. With Isaac coming on board and Isaac sort of being the way that he is, I think Jackson's sort of seeing him and go, okay, here's someone who actually knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he wants. He's very direct, which is why in the end Jax directly asked him, okay, who the fuck is your contact? I mean, why all the secrecy kind of thing? But yeah, the interactions with probably Echo and Aaron were probably the two that have stood out for me season 1 wise. Because I mean, Aaron, even though Aaron has worked for Jax in parts prior to all of these things happening, they still don't really like each other very much. It's a clan thing as well as a personality thing. Their personalities clash. They're both, for want of a better term, that sort of the alpha male type characters. So they do come to loggerheads over that sort of thing. And season 2, we saw them actually agree and come join together against Isaac at one point, which I thought was I didn't actually expect it to happen quite that way, and it was kind of cool to see that happen as well. Miss Yanti.
I love everything with Peggy in it every time.
I think Peggy would have to be my favorite NPC for sure.
My favorite little mascot of VTM right now. And Jonathan Phillips, I really wish I could just see like him go just full out powers on something, because he seems like the badass that we don't know about. So
you may get that chance.
And is that it for you, Yanti?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it for other people and stuff. So.
Magic. We got probably from two characters' perspectives, as former Prince Leslie Taylor and Isaac Graves.
So, from Isaac's point of view, because he's only sort of been brought in halfway through the season, he really hasn't had an opportunity to have those moments with any of the team. But he is picking, you can see what, as Graham alluded to earlier, with Isaac trying to show him some of the ropes. You know, he recognizes that he has one of the disciplines that he knows about because he uses it himself. And so he's kind of, hey, look, I can give you a few pointers and see how we go. And this kind of ties back into Isaac's background story, which may or may not appear in season 3. We don't know yet. But hopefully the players, the storyteller, and the viewers will keep that in mind when it eventually comes out, because then it will sort of start clicking as to why Isaac's doing what he's doing. The interaction with Jackson towards the end of the series there's a reason why Isaac's being the way he is because Clan Tremere do not reveal their secrets. It's You're asking a magician to reveal their tricks, and you know that's not going to happen. But at the same time, Isaac realized, well, you know, if I'm part of this coterie, you know, I need to at least earn a little bit of trust with the people that he's working with. Otherwise he won't get what he needs in return. But he is like he is a cold guy by nature. So like a lot of the interactions he's had with Jackson have come off in a way that he's not interested in what Jackson has to say, but it's just the way Isaac is. And I haven't had much of an opportunity with Zane or Echo to touch on getting to know them better as the thing. But obviously there is a tie between Isaac and Echo. It just hasn't been explored yet.
Yep, 100%.
As Leslie, I think he's in terms of interaction with the coterie, the group. So when it's been Leslie talking to the coterie as a whole, I think those have been moments where he's tried to show him that he is the boss. He means business. You fuck up, you pay for it. Sorry, Zane. And that whole thing that happened with the arm, with the hand coming off. I think Baz mentioned it that Marco was going to do something similar, probably not to the extent. But I already decided it's kind of like, nah, it's happening. It's kind of like I need to show an example as the prince of the city. I need to show an example that failure on a scale that risks the lives of your coterie is not acceptable. As an NPC interaction, I would have to say the golf game between Leslie and Van Diemen. I think that was
cool.
That was a good moment because it shows two very, very experienced and well-cultured kindred who've been in the city long enough. They know the politics of the game from both a respect point of view, but also a power struggle point of view. Because Van Diemen, he's going, well, I fucking know everything, and you want to know something, you're going to have to give it to me. Whereas, Leslie's going, well, I'm the prince of the city. I can make your life hell, kind of thing. So that was cool. But I will touch on one thing before I finish it, because I don't want to take up too much time. The interaction between Leslie and Echo at Gangster's Paradise, where you don't get to see a lot of that. Two kindred are coming together, not as kindred or whatnot, but they're actually coming together as individuals. And it was interesting how all of that just played out. It was like they were testing each other, but at the same time they were sort of trying to get to know each other on a more personal level, which kindred society, that's doesn't happen too often. So yeah, I really enjoyed that part of it, and of course the interactions I've had with Sarah as both characters different. Yeah. You got the respect of Sarah with the prince, but with Isaac it was a complete different interaction altogether. So yeah.
I suppose storyteller, any standout interactions for you?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of started this off, but I just, as you sit there thinking about it, you realise, just the Van Diemen stuff. I really, really enjoy the Van Diemen stuff. Everything with Van Diemen in it, and Magic sort of brought it up there, and it reminded me, because you forget what he's done. And I know we had Cam come in and do his sort of voice for Van Diemen to begin with, but I've voiced him there ever since, because Cam has other things on. But I've just really enjoyed the back and forth with Van Diemen. It's been quite enlightening. all the NPCs are fun, especially the likes of Nathan with Echo, but just Van Diemen just has something cool about him. I think he was my favorite NPC to create, actually. Being in Nosferatu, they've got a lot of crazy things going on, so
Awesome.
that's a cup of tea time.
We're getting close to that. So the one thing I just want to mention before we go to break, for the fact that pretty much all of us, apart from Magic, have had virtually no experience with Vampire the Masquerade and haven't really delved into the politics of the Kindred world or anything like that, and only know what we know through our research leading up to this, and obviously what we've watched on YouTube with those of us that have watched LA by Night and other people that do Vampire the Masquerade. I think most of us have grasped the politics in our characters' way reasonably well. I mean, obviously Melky Zane over there just doesn't really give a toss, and it's just going to be erratic at the best of times. But obviously Magic, knowing what he knows about VTM, knows more about the politics side of things. I think Yanti, you've done exceptionally well playing the political game with your character. And sort of, again, I'm sort of trying to look at it from that Bruja standpoint and think, well, how much do they care about the politics? Are they more subtle about it, or more sort of hard hitting? So it'd be interesting. Again, season 3, I think, is going to be a lot of fun. I think a lot more stories going to come out, a lot more character backgrounds possibly going to come to light, which will make things even more interesting. And looking forward to it, 100%. So we're going to go to break. We're going to come back about 3 or 4 minutes, guys. I think Nutty wants to make a coffee, and we all know how noisy she is. So we will be right back in a few. Don't go anywhere.
Get on. Well, I hope you guys have been using this time to think of questions.
I hope so, because I'm not thinking anymore.
Mine's more of a statement.
Make a statement. Make a statement.
She scares the hell out of me. Well, Sarah does.
But yes, so we are back. Nutty made toast and coffee, so it was really noisy. But and I suppose unless we have any more questions or anything more to discuss, I mean, this was never going to be a full sort of 2.5 hour session anyway. So chat, have you got any more questions for us as players or storyteller relating to the Vampire the Masquerade? I do have a question. I've seen his name in the chat list there, but is Error Code here by any chance? Error, are you actually in the chat somewhere? While we're waiting for people to maybe ask a question. Oh look, he didn't do it. There he is. Error, don't go anywhere. I got something for you shortly. So I suppose, actually, probably in the question that Baz had for us all before we actually started, for those of us that have not played Vampire the Masquerade before, and now having completed roughly 20-something episodes and 2 seasons of our own chronicle, how much have you enjoyed Vampire the Masquerade versus D&D? And I'll start with a storyteller with that one.
Versus D&D, man, you're stepping on some hallowed ground here.
There's the thing, we all come from a D&D background. Well, most of us come from a D&D background, and have played a lot of D&D previously, leading up to the switch to Vampire the Masquerade, which is a different tabletop system for us. So,
they're 2 very different beasts. D&D I can make up on the spot easy. It's like the back of my hand, not because I've been doing it for so long, but because in D&D it's fantasy, whether it's high or low fantasy, it's still fantasy, so you can kind of just wing it the whole time. With Vampire the Masquerade, you've got the fantasy element, but you're set in our case, and in a lot of the cases that you see the games played, the real world. So here we are in Melbourne, which I know nothing about, other than what I've been researching, and talking about towns, villages, areas, and it's obvious in some of the games. I've asked the question, is this a town? And then I'm told, no, it's just a province. So I feel Vampire the Masquerade, I'm not going to say one's better than the other. I think D&D is always going to be my home favourite because I like that.
But the question wasn't more about whether you enjoyed it better. Is this what are your I don't know, comparisons?
Right.
Have you enjoyed it as much as D&D or not as much as D&D? Like on that sort of level?
Yep, I look forward to playing it just as much as I look forward to playing D&D. It's kind of at a par with me at this point now. I feel a little more comfortable with it, a little loose and free with the rules. I was a little scared of making mistakes with these rules that are all in this crazy book. Now I'm less scared of that. I'm like, we're here to have fun, but it's also a cool, crazy, different sort of style of game. So, no, loving it, enjoying every minute of it, and feeling a bit more free and easy with the story that comes through now too. Like I say, with D&D, it's like the back of my hand. Now with VTM, it's starting to feel like I can chuck those things in there.
Cool. Yanti, same question for you.
I like it just as much. I don't want it to end. I wish it were longer because it goes by really fast to me. And I don't get to, with everybody here, it's hard to finally get that moment with certain characters and everything. So I wish we had a set VTM night, a set D&D night, because I wouldn't trade either for the other. Yeah. But yeah, and it makes me want to try other VTT or tabletop games or something like that too, like Call of Cthulhu and stuff like that, and see what they're about as well, because it's been really fun.
I'm much in the same boat as that. I would love to have a set night for everything if we could get everyone together to play. Obviously Wednesdays and Sundays have been our thing at the moment. That will change to a certain degree once, I know Baz, when he hits his winter hours, he's going to be less available for those sort of things, and obviously with other people, with now Sadiq changing his hours, he's less available. We've got other players that can definitely join us in these things, but it's something that I definitely want to look at for the future, is There's the Alien tabletop system that Baz and I've played before. Definitely looking keen at running that as a different table system, like you say, Call of Cthulhu.
Cthulhu looks awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a couple other ones that I've sort of looked at as well, which look amazing. Obviously, the rest of the World of Darkness world as well. Mages, the Werewolf, the Apocalypse, the Changeling one as well is another one I've sort of looked at. So there's a whole lot of different things within the World of Darkness franchise we could look at as well for the future. As much as I don't want to see the end of Vampire the Masquerade, I'm really looking forward to the start of the next campaign, next homebrew campaign as well. So we're going to split that up between VTM, other stuff as well. If obviously with Sanctum potentially as another mini adventure as well, we can stop and do that on a Sunday at any time throughout the course of campaign 2. So campaign 2, there's no time frame I'm putting on that because I'm wanting to slow the leveling down on that, so that could potentially run for an extended period of time while taking breaks for other projects too. So, but yes, VTM, I think I agree with Baz. The element of realism within VTM makes it different. The fact that we can use cell phones, we can use Google Maps, we talk in real talk. We use real life slang that we're comfortable already using as regular people that you don't often use in that fantasy setting of D&D. So I think it's less to think about character wise in VTM versus D&D, because you're kind of thinking about, well, you're in this fantasy era that's kind of set way back when, where they didn't speak proper English, or like the slang that we kind of use. Everyone speaks slightly differently, although that doesn't really matter too much either, depending on what your character is. But no, I've enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to season 3, 100%. And I hope we're probably going to keep it going. I mean, whether we finish this particular storyline, I know Baz has said he's relatively keen to keep it going, and maybe look at a different storyline, or a different storyteller if anyone wants to step up as well. Magic, coming from a VTM background, probably more so than a D&D background, or both.
I'm the opposite to most of you guys here. I did start off with D&D back in the teenage years, but it never really went to the years and years and years of D&D like most of you guys have been doing. And then it wasn't until I moved to Queensland over 20 years ago, that's where I got back into tabletop RPGs, and it was Vampire the Masquerade with this group. So now coming into D&D, thanks to Mina and Grim and Yanti, and obviously everybody else that has openly invited me into your various stories and campaigns. It's different in terms of, there's what I find with VTM, there is, as a player, you need to know a lot more about the law and the politics and how the kindred society works. Whereas in D&D, from my current experience, you don't need to know that as much. You can come from whatever background and whatever part of the plane of existence you come from, and that's all you really need to know, kind of thing. I mean, it does help knowing a little bit about the gods and things like that. So I think VTM is more of a, like, you really got to sink your excuse the pun, got to sink your teeth into it.
We all know about you and your puns, mate.
What do you mean? So yeah, I mean that's from my perspective, like VTM, there's just so much you need to know, and I'll come back with a question for you guys once we're finished up here, which will sort of tie into what we're talking about right now.
Sweet. Grim.
Probably going over a lot of what other people have said. The thing I love most about D&D, and it's almost more so in VTM, is the RP. I mean, VTM's almost completely that character interactions. We're not having battles and stuff, and I enjoy that in D&D, but I certainly come to it from like an RP point of view. And with Evil saying like VTM set in our world, some of that becomes easier because like in D&D, like every now and again I'll say like, oh God or Jesus, and you're like, well, that doesn't actually fit that setting. But
Yeah.
in VTM it comes naturally and you have an understanding of that world. But at the same token, the book for VTM is huge because the lore in it, in a
It's
way that's
massive,
not
yeah.
so constricted in D&D, because it's a little bit more free, and they've guidelines in both, but the way VTM is structured, there's some level of knowledge you feel like you need to have in order to be part of like the structure of it. It's a little less freeing, I think. There's probably a bit more work in you know, finding out that lore. I don't know if that's how Baz feels about it, but
I agree 100%.
yeah, but I think going into season 3, I've got a far firmer idea of where Pip's going, the things I want to do, and I'm very excited to see where the story goes next. So I'm loving VTM as much as I love D&D, and I want to, like everyone else, you know, try out new systems and new worlds and different tabletop RPGs. I think it's great.
Trashy.
For me, I like both of them. Not so much. What gets me is the storyline of them. I just playing in the story. As for the rules, the etiquette, and all that, as you all know, I just play that by ear. That's yeah. So for me, it's the storylines. I love the storylines. Like the one Yanti did with Sanctum, that awesome storyline. The one you did with Parabol, and the ones coming up. I just love the stories.
I think we all love the stories. I mean, that's part of why we do it.
For me, there's no real difference because it's, again, the story.
Yeah.
It's all about the story.
We just have to get you role-playing a bit more, which you honestly, you've been doing a whole lot better at in the last 6 months, 100%. Both campaigns.
Little bit.
I mean, unfortunately now you're dead in Curse of Strahd, but I know Mina did come up with something in the chat there about combat. Where was it? She tagged me it. Favorite unusual fighting tactic? Is that directed at me specifically or everyone, Mina? Because I mean, my tactics weren't exactly unusual. They would kind of either shooting a gun or punching someone. So everyone. Okay, so over the course of both seasons, we didn't really have too many combat interactions from memory. There was a few minor ones here and there.
Maybe by combat tactic, you could almost look at it discipline use, maybe.
Yeah, okay, yeah, more of that probably thing, how disciplines were used and in what situations. Again, for the dirty old Bruja, I don't think I had any unusual tactic apart from, or any unusual disciplines, because the disciplines are very, I wouldn't say mundane, but they're very specific to that clan, strength-based, speed-based. Using things like rapid reflexes to be able to move and dodge and do those sort of things has definitely helped in certain situations. Obviously, the season finale, being able to use Jackson's speed and strength to potentially save Aaron from a whole lot of damage in that explosion, considering where he was standing when it went off. Yeah, so I say for me, obviously the blink thing kind of has worked, upping his strength. I've been sort of focusing on that strength and speed base for me personally, but yeah, not much overly exciting for the Bruhara, unfortunately, discipline wise, unless I start learning other clan disciplines. Magic.
I really haven't tapped into much of the Tremere stuff, so that's kind of a little bit trickier for me to answer that question from an Isaac point of view. But you know, it is the things like for example, Pip would only use Sense the Unseen to look for those, and Zane for that matter, looking for only those hidden in the shadows.
Yeah.
Where he wasn't aware that Sense of the Unseen can also allow you to look at blood sorcery or things that have been left behind by blood sorcery. So it's kind of like it's one of those things where you kind of have to really read into the discipline itself within the manual. I think what from Leslie's point of view, he had like a variety of stuff that he could tap into. Like hang on, let me just I'll quickly pull up his sheet and
I know he had a few, didn't he? He had quite an array of disciplines.
He was ridiculous.
He was a Diablerizer as well, so he had extras. Plus, he had a long time.
He had Auspex, Potence, Celerity, Presence, and Dominate.
Holy shit!
And a lot of those, like his Potence was down to level 5.
Jesus Christ!
Which is the highest that you can get. So I think my favorite, like playing Leslie, I think my favorite moment was using that Fist of Cain, which literally it's kind of like if you remember like the Underworld where you saw the what's his name? It's not Marcus.
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
But essentially
the head vampire.
It's the thing. Yeah, the head vampire guy who they roasted in at the start. But it's that thing where you literally, or if you've watched, there's an American show, I can't remember the name of it either, but you literally watch them shove their fist into someone's chest and will either come out on the other end or rip out the heart, you know, kind of thing. That was my favorite. So as soon as that opportunity came up that Baz gave me, it's kind of, I'm using this right now. So I've been sitting like, I'd said to Baz, I've been sitting on using that for quite some time, and it's kind of like, here's the chance.
Yes,
so
I must admit,
would be my favorite.
Yeah, I must admit, from the Brewhouse perspective, looking down that Potence tree, there's some cool stuff in there. Yanti.
As far as showing off of disciplines, I think that fight with Sophie Hall was pretty kick-ass. Like, the Stygian Cloud went down, the shotgun blast, the cane from Isaac coming out was really cool, and then the Malky's hiding. But, you know, when we all come together eventually, I think we're gonna combine. It's gonna be epic.
Yeah, I think looking at our group, if the group comes together and we are able to use our collective disciplines in a particular situation, it's going to be pretty out there. I think it's going to be an interesting situation to have ourselves in. Grim.
So most of Pip's disciplines are quite situational. Premonition being my favorite. It's entirely story driven, and I've loved the way Baz is sort of like, right, it's time for a vision, Pip. Yeah, you're going into this. But going back to what Mina said about combat, definitely the Sophie Hall thing, like that. like there was a bit of chaos there, but it was also like there was some organization, the way that went down. And again with the explosion, that cloud,
Yeah,
you know, it saved Zane from final death. I mean, it
100%.
just did. And pure combat, Zane clotheslining that dude off the bike. I mean, that
I forgot about that part. Yeah,
bang,
dislocating his shoulder in the process.
That was awesome.
yeah, it was perfect.
First and last time.
Zane, your turn.
Yeah, it have to be Echo's Dark Cloud always.
Yeah, that Stygian cloud is crazy.
It is, yes. Combat. Zane's not a fighter. Really not a fighter.
You've held your own a couple of times, sort of. Sort of.
Sort of. Yeah, okay.
I mean, you almost blew yourself up. You managed to survive that.
I agree with what was said about that clothesline, though. You know, you didn't have to do it. Zane's not a fighter, but you did, and it was awesome.
Yeah, it was painful.
Everything Zane does is.
I mean, Mina points out a very good point here. Is your weapon is your technology, your ability to do what you do with computers, because you could really screw someone's life on that level with the level of skill that Zane has. I'd imagine. I mean, you could just about erase someone from the world by hacking into the system and doing that. So.
As long as the dice are favourable, yes.
With the dice pool that you've got, I mean, okay, you had some pretty shitty rolls in the last episode, but I mean, with that dice pool, I'd think you'd be struggling to fail a lot of your technology stuff.
I think it's what
9 or 10 dice or something.
8, I think.
Yeah.
So I got 4 in one, 4 in the other.
But yeah, that was a pretty good question, because I mean, yeah, I think I have to sort of, again, the echoes of disciplines. So the Stygian Cloud, there was another one that you used on the night of the Elysium attack, which was another cloud-based thing, but it wasn't. I don't think it was Stygian Cloud. It was one that you used on, like, you sent it somewhere else, because the Stygian Cloud sent it on you, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Are you thinking of the listening and seeing through?
Using the shadows for that.
Yeah.
That
Like
there was
I
that
did
one
on the
there.
bike, the biker guy. I think I used it on.
Yeah, and I think you used it and used the ability to go from shadow to shadow when we captured Jenny as well, which I thought was
like
kind
a
of cool.
stealthy one that it ups my stealth. Yeah.
Yeah. The disciplines across the clans, there's some really neat disciplines, and if I wasn't so set on playing Bruja at the start for the first campaign or first chronicle into VTM, there was some, like, the blood magic stuff is definitely something that I'm kind of keen on too, because I do like the caster as well. La Sombra, Tremere, those sort of clans, that just some of the disciplines they have are just out there, and it's just very cool. So if I get a chance to play another character, I'll be definitely changing my clan 100%. I want to eventually go through most of the clans if I can. But yeah. So with that, unless anyone else has any other questions.
Me,
Grim's got a question.
Is there NPC that maybe you haven't interacted with, or that you'd like to interact with more in season 3?
NPC or PC or both, or just NPC?
NPCs.
NPC. Well, you start. You ask the question. Lead us into it.
I would like to hang out with Van Diemen, and I think I think Baz would enjoy being Van Diemen.
I do.
I think Pip and Van Diemen conversation would be fucking epic.
One of Pip's touchstones is knowledge is power. Who else has more knowledge than Van Diemen?
100%.
And I want to hang out with Sylvia more, because I know I need to add to my pool of disciplines. So I'm hoping to sort of interact on that level with Sylvia a bit, and perhaps any other Malkavians that that pop up around the place. So yeah.
Sweet. Without giving too much away, just off that, season 3 will give the characters more freedom. A lot of the hectic things have gone on. Now the hectic is really just you guys doing your thing now. So as far as cliffhangers, there probably will be a little less as you guys resolve whatever you're going to be doing next. But yes, next person.
Trash.
Yeah, there's none that he can think of.
No NPC that we've come up so far that you would potentially
really.
want to interact with.
Not really. He likes his computer too much.
Well, computer's an NPC, kind of.
Siri, he wants to get with Siri.
Oh yeah.
Or Alexa, one of the two.
Probably Alexa, not Siri. Siri, he probably want to go at it with a hammer.
I'm afraid I
Yanti.
can't let you do that, Zane.
Miss Yanti.
That would actually freak Zane out.
Probably.
I would I'd want to get to know Billy some more, and probably I know I said Peggy, but also Jonathan. Those are the two I haven't really gotten to see, and I'd like to see more of them. Yeah.
Magic.
That is a good question. From Isaac's point of view, I guess he really hasn't had. I don't think he would really mind too much whether he interacts with certain NPCs or not. Like he's again. It's hard because I want to talk about Isaac, but I don't also want to.
You don't want to give
spoil it
anything
for-
away.
Yeah, I don't want to give anything away, but I suppose if anything, at this stage, it would be actually 2, Mary Wade, because I think that would be important for Isaac to interact with Mary Wade at some point. Obviously being of the same clan. But the way Isaac is, there'll be a reason why he would want to talk with Mary. I think the second one would be, again, based on Isaac's background, would be probably Van Diemen at some point. I mean, Isaac's been in the city long enough, so there would have been prior interactions that they've had, and there's probably a good chance that some of the acquisitions that Van Diemen has been able to get has come through the hands of Isaac. So it'd just be interesting to see how that pans out.
And as far as Jackson's concerned, probably actually his own friend Big Joe that had some minor interactions with Joseph, but not any real at length conversations. I guess it's all been very on the job type stuff. So like less personal interactions between those two. So I'd probably like to see him and Big Joe probably have more of a personal interaction at some point, which will probably happen. Again, depending on what happens in season 3 and what happens within the coterie, what positions each of us sort of take in now that Echo's become Prince. So that could leave other positions open for more trusted members to sort of join. Maybe a new coterie of hounds, in particular, or just that sort of thing, personal security, that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, I think just probably him more than anybody out of that whole sort of list of things, because he is probably Jackson's closest friend, and it's been very businesslike up until now. So.
That's good. I guess for me, NPCs, because it's what I do, I would have liked to have seen more NPC interaction with Jenny personally, but she's gone now.
But she's kind of dead, so.
But I want to give you a piece of insight, because while you guys were mentioning your NPCs you'd like to chat with, which I thought was good, I made some notes of who wants to chat with who. But I actually had a lot of plans for Jenny, and she was a great character, and I will give you guys a bit of a tidbit here, because she wanted to be caught. It was deliberate. There was a plan.
I kind of figured she wanted to be caught. It was too convenient that she was caught in that way, I felt.
Absolutely. But things happened, and somehow she didn't end up to stay around. So that was one of those things that went wayward. And then I saw you guys were mentioning in the chat, I think it was the Malky Primogen. Yanti, you brought it up. Zane wants to be hanging out with the Malky Primogen.
I think Zane and her have a lot in common.
Well, I want to give you a note on her as well. I had nothing planned for her other than her name and a little bit of her history. So that night, when they were like, "Oh, we want to go talk to the Malky Primogen," I was like, "Oh shit!" So she's a Malky. What's she gonna have? And I was trying to come up with something real quick, and her, and I can't remember her name off by heart without pulling out my notes. But she's based on a real life person who came across in the slave or prisoner ships from England back in the day, and she was a murderer, but mostly petty crime to begin with, but she stabbed people as well. And I was like, that's it, she's just going to enjoy stabbing someone, and I need that to be. And I was like, right, she's going to stab the dude right next to her who's going to be one of the guards. It was all off the cuff, and it was one of the funniest freaking things. And then when she hands Zane the dagger and he stabbed as well, it just made the moment.
Great.
And I'm really glad that little off the cuff just panned out so nicely.
I mean, I'll say it till my dying day. Some of the best roleplay that has ever come out of any session I've been involved in has been impromptu, off the top of your head, and not planned. In the moment, you get in the moment, you say something, and it just happens. And some of the best RP moments have come out of that. So, I love that stuff. It's great, which is really my DM style. My DM style too. I don't really plan heaps of stuff. A lot of it's just impromptu. Well, we are getting close to 10 o'clock, 1:45. Any more questions from our players or storyteller before we look at closing up the session tonight? Or chat, for that matter? I know.
Yeah, actually, I got one for not only for the party, but also the viewers. It was kind of touched on earlier, that Zane and Pip are not like combat ready, whereas in a D&D party, literally everybody in some degree is capable of holding their own in a combat situation. Now, we haven't had very many combat situations in VTM, and that's kind of normal for any VTM. There's more RP than the actual combat. But my question to everybody is, since you're all new to VTM, what has been probably the most difficult thing to come to grips with in the VTM universe so far?
Good question. Start with storyteller, I think, on that one.
Ooh,
being the one that's doing the most work, I think, at this point.
It's a labor of love. Man, I think for the most difficult thing, I guess it's sort of out of context a little bit, is really just the politics of it all, going through that book. For me, because I'm not playing any particular character, I don't have to fuss too much of the exacts. I guess, I'm sort of playing roundabout. I know what disciplines each set have, and I've got a Excel spreadsheet I pull up, so I know if I'm going to be playing an NPC who's a Bruja or whoever, I just know what the disciplines are. I haven't written any down for them. I just open the book and know I'm going to use that power, because to me, I just feel like that it's just how it flows a bit nicer. The hardest part, that's probably it for me. It probably is just getting to grips with the lore behind it, making sure I am getting it right. As we know, and I think I mentioned it a few times now, in the very first episode, I had things mixed up between the Cam and the Anarchs, Barons and Prince and yada yada, but we stepped forward and got over that. So I think that's my thing, is just that, getting my head around the politics of it all.
much the same. It's like when we first started talking about it, looking at the rule book, I started reading through it, and that is the hardest thing I've ever had to read. Was and it wasn't so much the rule, it was that first part, like because the way it was written. I think it's just the way the book itself was written, not so much the stories that it had. It was just the way it was set out. It was a very difficult read. In the end, I just sort of threw that side apart and did my own research on the internet, the World of Darkness wiki, and did some sort of research into what I kind of gathered my character would know as someone who'd been in the city for only sort of 40 or 50 years and being in the Bruja, just sort of focusing on that. But I think the same thing, it's just trying to get your head around the whole politics of the VTM world, the Kindred world, and dealing with that has been not hard, but just different, like really very, very different. As you say, very roleplay heavy, very roleplay based. The dice system I love. I really enjoy that success failure style dice system. So much easier to get your head around than trying to have to. I mean, the math thing with D&D, I've got used to it because I've been playing it for so long. But I kind of imagine someone new into D&D coming in and not really understanding how it all works and how confusing it is, that math that you kind of got to do. Whereas VTM, you either succeed or you fail, and you're based on that kind of system. I think it just makes it a little bit easier across the board. But yeah, just again, that politics, I think, is the lore and the politics behind it. It's just so much lore to digest. Yanti Grim, Yanti first, I guess.
I think it's harder with knowing what you know and not knowing what your character knows more than D&D, because in a world of technology, it's a lot easier to gain knowledge and find it out. And so it's harder to be careful with what Echo knows and what Echo doesn't know and how that all works. And then the second would be, I had to pick the most challenging compulsions and the most challenging stain-worthy character possible, because why not? And it's been very hard with my dice rolls being really bad on those bestial.
I think Echo suffered the worst with those too, with the hunger.
Yeah, it's been rough.
Echo and Zane probably been the two that have had the worst run with the hunger so far, I think.
So that's tricky, and that's about it.
Grim.
So two things as well. The first thing is my skills, almost entirely on the right side of the sheet. I can do nothing physically, and I just, except for one thing, and I'm like, sometimes it's hard to like think with that in mind. But when I created the character, I did it from the idea that he's a library, so I built a librarian, so I built it, well, he does this stuff because he's a librarian, and it hasn't always come into play in a way that would be useful, which is fine. I need to sort of work on that as a player myself. The other thing is playing from the point of view of someone who doesn't know anything that's going on. It's a balance. I've found it's a balance between trying to ask questions to get that information out for the viewers as well as for Pip, and also balancing that with what Pip cares about, which, you know, sometimes he just doesn't give a shit. So there's a lot of lore, and I kind of want Pip to be a vehicle for getting some of that out in some ways.
I think you've done that. I think you've done that a little bit, because I mean the questions that Pip's been asking throughout the whole chronicle has been, I think, really cool, because it's offered explanation on a lot of different things, which I think it's definitely helped me in a little as from a player's perspective. So I don't know about anyone else, but Trash.
What was the question again?
What have you found difficult about coming into VTM?
For me, I pretty much wing it. as I usually do with most stuff.
Have you done any research into the Malkies at all, or you literally just winging it?
I do try and retain that knowledge. It doesn't always work, but I try.
Hey, at least you try, mate.
A lot of it is just play it by ear. As I said, I enjoy the storyline more.
Which kind of fits the
anything
Malkies,
else.
really, doesn't it? Just playing it by ear. Mina says, mine is sort of mixed because I'm both a viewer and a PC, but probably knowing what you can and can't do is as in protocol and politics wise. So as a viewer, it isn't as hard as a PC. It is a minefield. I would have to agree with that. Any other viewers? No, that's pretty much it there. Ask the man about the cows and he knows, though. Oh, Jesus Christ. Bring back the cows.
It's not going to stop, is it?
No. Well, I mean, Fibble blew up a cow in Curse Strahd, and then we got cows in the Discord, and it's everywhere. He's utterly amused. Yeah, utterly amused. Right, so, any further questions? No? Good. Right, we're done. So thanks, guys. Again, players, NPCs, PCs, viewers, cheers for hanging out with us in this Just Chatting session to recap our chronicle thus far, and obviously recap season 2 as well. Mr. Ericode, are you still in the chat, my friend? Before we take off, as we do have a new homebrew campaign starting in a couple of weeks, we have obviously session 0 next Sunday night, which will be starting at 7:30. So we're going to bring it back to that 7:30 time slot. I know, Trash, sometimes you're a little bit late. Not too worried about that. If you're late, you're late. We will work around it. It is not a big issue.
Somewhere gambling, that's all it is.
That's all right. It's not hard to deal with. As I said, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. So session 0 will be next Sunday night, starting at 7:30. Again, those that are going to be involved, whether you are playing a PC or an NPC, hang out with us because you'll need to probably know some of the rules, our table rules we're going to put in to help you in that position. We've got a couple of players that will not be starting with us in session 1, so they will be joining us in chat via either the stream or the call if they wish to be. I know Baz is going to join us in the call. His player will probably join us a few episodes in. We have another player which will be joining us a bit much later, who will not be joining us in the call but will be in the stream and will be rolling the stats in the background. They wish to remain anonymous at this point. I'm quite happy to keep it that way. However, we will be seeing some familiar faces coming back playing some NPCs for us, including Baz, who will actually be in session 1, but not as his character, but he'll be playing an NPC for us in session 1. We will see the return of Magic as an NPC at some point. I've asked him to play a particular character, and we will see Nutty potentially, may not be in episode 1, but at some stage in the early episodes, she'll be playing an NPC for me as well.
A trader NPC, maybe?
No, she'll be playing a rather crazy NPC, which you'll meet in the keep. So, when is session 0 and when is session 1? So, session 0 will be next Sunday, 6th of February, 7:30 p.m. New Zealand Standard Time. Session 1 will be the following Sunday, the 13th of February. So, what I am going to do, I wasn't going to do this and I decided, bugger it, I'm going to do it. Era's here, so I want Era to see this as well as other players and viewers alike. I'm going to give you guys a sneak preview to the intro to Paradigm 2 Shadow's Embrace. I basically made up a little short video intro to intro the stream. So for those in the call, if you don't have the stream up, throw the stream up and have a geese at the intro. So I'm going to switch it over very shortly. Era, you may recognize something in this video. Just if we're all ready, I will mute myself in the call as well. But here we go, guys. This is a preview of the intro for Paradigm 2. There we go, guys. That is the intro for Paradigm 2 Shadow's Embrace. As other PCs join, their likeness will be added to the video. So once the other characters join the party, those Hero Forge character images will be added to the rest of it as well. And Mr. Errorcode has provided the audio for the intro as well. It's a audio piece called Warrior's End. Many of you that hang out with Era will know this tune quite well, and you may see another one of your audio tunes turn up in the BRB and maybe the ending scenes as well, dude. So again, thank you, Era, for the permission to use your audio tracks and those. It turned out a lot better than I thought it was, actually. I was a little bit concerned it was going to be a bit weird and tacky, but it actually turned out pretty good. So with that, obviously, again, as I say, session 0 will be next Sunday, 6th of February, 7:30 p.m. New Zealand Standard Time, where we will be going through our house rules. We'll be going through rolling our stats and how those stats will be rolled, because it's not your standard stat roll. It's something a little different. And going over things, obviously any concerns the players have, that'll be the time to bring it up about those rules and about what we're doing, and any questions the players have about leading into the story, what they may need to know for their particular characters, or hash that sort of stuff out as well. That session 0 may go for an hour, may go for longer, just really depends on how quickly we get through stuff. And then on the 13th we'll be starting with those particular characters that you saw in the video there. So with that, I think we're going to say good night. Thank you again, everybody, for hanging out with us. Appreciate it a lot. Your support is always appreciated. So we're going to find someone to raid. Demon Gund is doing D&D. What are they doing? Oh, he's doing some Tailspire stuff. Tailspire looks really freaking awesome, I must say. Don't know how good it would be in an actual game setting, but as far as for map making and stuff, it actually looks very, very cool. Did we just lose Yanti?
Yeah, said she had to go.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Me too, bro. I'm about to head on out.
No worries. Cheers, guys. We will
Thanks, everybody.
see you next time, pal. See you Wednesday.
You will indeed.
All right, guys. So we're going to do this raid thing here. We're going to go raid Demon Guy. He's doing some Tailspire map building by the looks of it, or maybe even playing in a Tailspire setting. I'm not entirely sure, but we're going to raid him anyway. Go hang out with him. Shut him a follow if you haven't hit him with a follow, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow night, I'm doing some more map stuff. I got a second part of the map I did last night, so come and hang out with them with making some map stuff for a mini adventure. Until then, take care. We'll see you, and if not see you tomorrow, we'll see you Wednesday.